Profiles showcases people in our community. In this segment, we meet Arvada's housing director and learn how his passion for helping others takes him to distant shores on his off time. A beautiful blue lagoon, half a world away from Arvada, pulls at Ed Talbot's heartstrings.
Chuuk is located, call it the middle of the Pacific. It's actually called the Federated States of Micronesia, and there's a series of little island nations that are all included within that.
As a volunteer diver with Earthwatch, Talbot joined a research team there, studying the impact of World War II shipwrecks on the ocean's ecology.
I felt I was contributing something with this, to actually taking a look at this vast resource, and it's a historic site, obviously, and being able to understand and contribute, hopefully, to its preservation.
While making a difference abroad by swimming the ocean, at Arvada City Hall, Talbot wades through a sea of housing issues to help others.
I serve as Executive Director for the Arvada Housing Authority, and I serve as Manager for Housing and Neighborhood Revitalization for the city, so I kind of have two jobs wrapped into one.
With the city since 1976, Talbot navigates housing issues such as the Section 8 program that provides rent to low-income families, or the Essential Home Repairs program that helps low-income homeowners with needed repairs.
We have a lot of elderly folks that take advantage of that, and very often they're kind of suspicious and a little scared to have a contractor come in to get work, and they can't afford it. So we're basically there to help them through that process and then also help them with financial assistance to get it done.
His passion for making life better for others traces to his college days in the 60s. That's when environmental issues struck a chord with him too. And for 25 years, he's explored the ocean as a diver.
You get a great appreciation of the ocean in terms of its beauty. It's also very fragile, and we've seen some of those impacts, what's happened over time with the oceans. So it sort of grew.
Talbot has been on 2 expeditions with Earthwatch. On the first, he cruised the Mediterranean off the coast of Spain to help research declining populations of dolphins and whales.
They taught us how to come up on a pod of dolphins, so that you wouldn't scare them or obviously cause harm, but so we could get close enough to do the counts.
And in 2008, he joined Earthwatch on a research dive to the Chuuk Lagoon, a region where the Japanese Empire kept most of its fleet during World War II. Many of the ships were sunk during battle in 1944 and remain on the ocean floor.
This has kind of been compared to as probably one of the premier dive sites for wrecks in the entire world. Very isolated, but you have basically potentially over 50 wrecks that are in depths that are reachable by sport divers. And these wrecks have history, and there's a lot of characteristics to them that just make them fascinating.
But today, they are a serious concern. For one thing, the impoverished people of the tiny nation of Chuuk salvage munitions from the ships, then use them for fishing by exploding makeshift bombs to stun or kill the fish for harvest.
And where are the fish? They're around the wrecks because that's where they basically accumulate. So those explosions going off next to the wrecks were causing damage to those wrecks and actually to a lot of the coral. So that was another issue that we wanted to look at.
And time itself is taking its toll. The old iron ships, many with oil in their tanks, are corroding.
And one that we did find out there, it was rather disturbing, about in the middle of the expedition, we went out to the Kiyosumi Maru, and there's a tanker about another 600 yards off that's sunk. It's upside down and under. And we noticed an oil slick, and it was basically at the surface and extended for about 5 kilometers. It was a fairly good-sized slick, and we hadn't seen that before. So we actually motored over there, tied up, and we actually dove in that. And we found out indeed there's evidence of leaking oil coming from that particular tanker.
Researchers say if the tankers rupture, the results could be tragic.
It's going to be a huge impact. And on a poor island or a series of islands with a poor population, that amount of oil into the mangroves and the islands and that beautiful lagoon would just be devastating, absolutely devastating.
And the evidence of change is there, says Talbot.
And we even came across on one deck house where the deck from above had collapsed, pancaked down on the deck below. That had happened over the course of a year, because a year before they hadn't seen that. So that decomposition has taken place.
Contrasting the beauty of the ocean with the tragic moments of war touched him too.
One of the things that hit me, and there's a moment there, is that when there's one wreck we did a lot of work on called the Fujikawa Maru, and as you go by it, you can see that the gun was basically not just positioned, stationary. It was actually in use. And around the gun, there's empty shell casings. And so you go by that, and all of a sudden it freezes that moment for you back into World War II.
For Talbot, the dive and the journey to the Chuk Lagoon reinforced his commitment to make a difference by spreading the word that action is needed to prevent potential damage to the ocean. And back in his office, he still enjoys making a difference for those here at home, too.